The role models at the time we were growing up was the black activists, I guess you would call them at that time, the Philip Randolph, Walter White. These are the individuals that were really constantly in the news because they were trying to get the country to accept blacks on a level where they can participate in the American experience on an equal term with the whites. Back then it was pretty difficult to get the country as a whole to give the blacks the opportunity to become involved in the country as a whole. They were relegated primarily to servant status, I guess you would call it at that time. During the war, World War II that is, the fighting between the Americans and the Axis came about, and that being drafted, you had to give some consideration as to what phase or what branch of the service that you would like to enter. Up until that time, I did not have any aspiration as far as flying. Growing up, I was never near an airport or had any dealing with airplanes, so it was not a part of my life at that time. To have the blacks enter into the military in some capacity other than a servant capacity. Primarily, they were truck drivers, they worked in the laundry, they worked in the mess halls, things of that nature. Since World War I, where they did have some active participation in the war, like the 25th Infantry from New York, we did not have anything like that during World War II to begin with. Everything that I know of was constantly promoted in the black newspapers. At that time, we had newspapers that devoted primarily to issues of the blacks. And they were black newspapers, and that's where we got most of our news, because the black news were very seldom covered in the regular newspaper. So after all of this was going on, and I found that the activity of getting blacks involved in flying appealed to me. So then I started becoming involved and to getting ready for something of this type so I can go into the military, hopefully into the flying phase of it. In high school, we started a program which was basically about flying, the aviation capacity, all of the things necessary that you would need to participate in flying. So I enrolled in that program. And from that, I enlisted in the Air Corps Enlisted Reserve, with the idea of being in the Air Corps. At least that was partway into what the path I wanted to follow. Then, of course, the military finally consented that they would allow blacks into the flying in the military. So I enlisted in the cadet program so that I would be able to go into the flying phase of it. When this happened, I imagine most of the blacks that were concerned with flying readily. I am Robert Ashby.